installation. What we're doing here is installing a ceiling fan into a Ford passenger van. Most of the videos I found on YouTube were regarding cargo vans, and this video will be for a passenger van. What makes the passenger vans unique and different is these ceiling panels. So what you have to do is remove the ceiling panel and cut a piece out of the ceiling panel like this to accommodate the fan, and then reinstall the ceiling panel. So those will be some of the items we get into here, and we'll do more on that shortly. Okay, the fan I installed was the Maxx Fan Model 7500 Deluxe, which comes with a remote and a rainproof cover. Another item, before you get started with your project, you're going to have to think about this fan will work intake and exhaust, but for it to work, it needs to have air. So you need to get air into the van at some location. So you can always just roll down a window, but that'll let bugs in. You can add another fan to the ceiling, which will provide nice cross ventilation, but the fans themselves are like $340 on Amazon now. You probably have another 100 in materials, so there's that cost. Also, if you add a fan up here, you're adding more weight to the roof, which that raises your center of gravity. Plus, I've heard from some people that a fan up in here does create some more road noise for the driver and passenger as they're going down the freeway. Another idea is to install a different window here. The passenger van comes with glass here, of course, but it's fixed and it doesn't open. So the aftermarket Van Windows Direct has a number of different options. You can go with an awning window, you can go with a single slider, double sliders, and the double slider has actually a screen built into the window. So I'm looking pretty hard at those right now. But in the meantime, the windows in here will cost you $700 to $1,200 parts and labor. What I've used in the meantime is a simple set of window screens for like $100 a pair. I started off with this screen here from the Eurocamper people, and this is a screen that comes out of Europe somewhere. And the actual openings on this were not large enough to supply enough air for the Maxx Fan. Maxx Fan is a 10-speed fan, and this particular screen in the window up here would only allow enough air to run the fan in second speed. Once you shift it to third speed, then the fan would start starving for air. So I found another fan here on the aftermarket. I'll leave a link in the comments below. But this one's large enough to, if one of these in each side is large enough to allow the Maxx Fan to be run at the top speed, number 10. So that's just something to think about before you get too far into the project. You're going to need to figure out a way to get air into the van to supply the Maxx Fan so it can do some ventilation. Okay, before we get into all the cutting, I want to do a review of the tools that you'll probably need to get in advance of the fan installation. So you want to get as much cordless as possible: cordless drill, cordless jigsaw, and cordless caulking machine. The blades for the jigsaw, I recommend a sheet metal blade, of course, for cutting into the roof, and I found the 32 works best. That's a 32 TPI, they call that, 32 teeth per inch. And the advantage of that is when you're cutting into the roof with the 32, there's less movement up and down, less catching of the drill itself, so there's less movement from the saw and the roof. Nice smooth cut. Before I did this, because I hadn't cut open any vans before, I went to Home Depot and got a piece of sheet metal and did some practice on that. The other thing we on a passenger van, there's a lot of interior panels. So for interior panel removal, this is a nice kit here. Also, these tools, and I'll leave a link to all these tools on below. Those are nice for popping panels on and off interior panels. As far as the caulking gun here, you'll see this when you review the DIY videos. I'll leave a link below. But for gluing the adapter to the roof is Sikaflex 221, and you can order this at the same time you order your roof adapters from DIY Vans. And they also have this the Dicor lap sealant. This is a good final sealer to put on and around the fan to waterproof it. I also use this in my roof rack mounts. As far as wiring up the van itself and wiring up the fan too, I got the wire fly off of Amazon. This is a kit which includes a nice stripper, and this is the crimper, and here's the kit box, and here's some spare terminals. What's nice about the wire flies is they are heat shrink. So these terminals, once you crimp it on right here, then if you apply heat on the rubber here, that'll shrink down and form a water-resistant seal. And to provide the heat guns are really nice. So this is another tool off of Amazon here. And I'll, again, leave a link for all this stuff below. That's about it for now. One last tool is the long nib marker. I got this idea from Matt from AVC Vans, but he uses these all the time when he's installing his ceiling fans. And a long nib marker, I'll leave you a link from Amazon, but when you're working around the fan adapter plates and such, it's super nice to get a fine long tipped marker like this to make your marks so you can cut appropriately. So that's been a super handy tool that I've used in a lot of different situations since the van build. Okay, I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel here on how to install Maxx Fans into the ceiling of various types of vans. There has to be, I bet, over 50 different YouTube videos on how to install Maxx Fans. But I found two pretty good sources here. Nick at Van Builder Headquarters has a real nice 1-hour YouTube video, and I left the link below in comments. That pretty much covers everything you'd want to know about installing a Maxx Fan. That's pretty much the method I used. You also want to watch the videos produced by Hein at DIY Vans. I left those links below also. He includes information on how to install the interior support frames. So check out both of those, or all three of those, actually all four of the videos in the links I left in comments. And then you can proceed with the next section of the YouTube video here, which is primarily going to be focused on the unique things you'll run across installing a Maxx Fan into a passenger van where you want to use and keep the stock ceiling panel. Quick note, you'll see here that the van already has a roof rack. I installed the roof rack before the fan because it's a lot easier to actually use a jigsaw to cut the hole from the ceiling. And if you don't have a rack or some type of support, you can actually ding the ceiling with your knees. Plus, the roof racks are handy for solar panels and decks and washing the van. So just a quick note there. Another quick note is after you've glued on your exterior adapter plate and interior framing supports per the Nick and Hein videos, you'll want to take your stock interior ceiling panel and push it back up into place on a temporary basis. Then you take your white fan bezel and flip it over and use that as a template for where you want to cut your ceiling panel hole. Just use your black long-tipped magic marker to make that cut location. One interjection here, and that is the chip box. I learned this from a guy who used to do custom vans in the 70s. But when you're cutting into the roof, you don't want those hot chips spreading around the van. So you'll see other videos where people have gone to lengths installing, sheet plastic and things like that. But if you just build yourself a little cardboard box like this and tape it up against the ceiling, all the chips will drop into the box. And also, the roof plate, once you get it cut out, it will drop into the box also. Okay, in this section, you'll see the bolts that I use to hold down the front and rear of the fan. I ran the bolts in the front down through the spoiler and then also down through some hold down strips and then through the fan base and then through the van roof. And then for the bolts in the front and rear, I dropped them through the big cross beams, the thick cross beams that go across the ceiling of the van, and then came out the bottom and attached a big washer and a nylock nut. So that was for the 3 bolts in the front and 3 bolts in the rear of the fan. And then on each side of the fan bracket, I put down large wood screws that went down through the fan and through the van roof and then into the DIY framing support brackets underneath. So you'll see some of these fan installation videos where they're simply going down through the fan base and into the van roof and nothing else, just a 12 sheet metal screws attaching the van to the roof, and that sheet metal on top of the van is pretty thin, so that looked like a pretty precarious installation. This installation here is actually bolts going into the van roof cross beams in the north and south location. East and west is big long wood screws going down into the black framing support brackets inside the van. But you can see here for the front and the back of the fan installation, the screws or bolts are going to go through the beam right here, which is super thick and super strong, and no need to have any supports going from this side to this guy's, because there's your support right there. So that's the nice thing about the rear fan on a Ford 148 not extended. We're exactly 14 inches between the main support beams right here, so that's nice. Support in here to this area is pretty thin right here, so good to have support in here. So this will be a nice solid mount here. Okay, I also wanted to show the clamping method I use, which is very similar to Nicket Van Builder HQ. That link is below. But we basically use the Sikaflex to attach the adapter plate, and then use strips of wood and clamps to ensure the adapter plate is as flat as possible. Okay, we're going to shift back now to things in particular you need to do for Ford Transit passenger vans when you want to install a fan and use the stock ceiling panel. So after you've cut your hole and attached your adapter plate on the top, then you want to get your ceiling panel and reinsert it up into the top of the van for a temporary marking of where you're going to be cutting. And then you take your bezel and drop it down through your ceiling hole and use your long tipped black magic marker to draw around the inside of that bezel onto the ceiling panel, and that'll be where you cut out the ceiling panel. So after you've made your marking on the ceiling panel as to where it needs to be cut out, before you drop the ceiling panel down, go ahead and establish how much wood it's going to take to fill the gap. Now this will vary from van to van, so I just went over to my spare wood section and found some strips of wood that you could slide into the gap being between the ceiling panel and the black framing supports from DIY. So once you establish the pieces of wood that'll fill that gap nicely, then you can just verify that that's the same on both sides, and then hold on to that measurement and drop the ceiling panel and At that point, you're ready to cut a hole out of the ceiling panel. So anyway, this, excuse me, this right here cures the issue of what are we going to screw the bezel into? What's this going to screw into? Some of the other kits out there leave that blank. So this is basically some wood I measured from the ceiling. This is the gap between the DIY support bracket here and the top of the headliner. Here you can see it's a naked. I've marked where I screwed from the top. So here's the piece that'll fit up here, and then we'll have good wood to screw the bezel in. And anyway, I measured the wood that was that would be required to fill that gap in the ceiling panel, between the ceiling panel and the DIY supports, and they measure 0.950 inch, or just about 24, exactly 24 millimeters. That's the thickness. Now that might vary a little bit depending on your van, but that's what my van measured, and that's the wood I'm going to put in there to screw the bezel into. And I'll actually screw these pieces of wood into the DIY. Here's the hole cut out for support bracket. The next bezel, we marked this from the ceiling earlier, so there's the mark. And next step is you have to peel this wire off. It's just glued down to the surface here, and then I mark these rear and front just for reference in the future if needed. But as you can see here, both of these lights are going to have to come out, and we're going to have a hole up here, but we'll probably plug that with some of this material in here. I think the bezel is going to cover this hole here, so this is not going to show. These lights are just going to pop out with pressure in the back here, squeezing pressure, pop out like they popped in. So this one, as you squeeze like this, it's going to push right out. On these here, this will basically squeeze here and squeeze here, and they'll drop out this way. Of course, I want to unplug this aluminum first. To unplug these harnesses first, there's a little black tang right here in the back. So you push that down, and out it comes. Likewise for up here, push the black tang in the back. That guy right there, the black tang. Push down, out it comes. Now I didn't unglue this flange here. I'm just going to cut right through it. Hopefully that works. Well, that confirms that the back hole will be covered with the backlight. I'm sorry, this is the front here. The front light's going to be covered by this bezel, so all we have to do is fill a gap right here somehow probably with the this old piece here. Cut a piece out. Now to get this black spacer off, you're going to need a heat gun, of course. But with a heat gun like this and a little flat tool like this, it basically comes right off. But it's on there pretty good without the heat gun. You might not get that without ripping the whole headliner apart. Anyway, here's the hole I cut out, and basically this got traced from the area I needed here, and I put this in temporarily so it's flush on the outside, and you can still see a line on the other side. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try hot glue to seal in the back, because it seems to be the kind of stuff Ford likes to use. This is either epoxy or hot glue right here. So, and likewise here, they got most of it sealed. Spread on the hot glue and tried to keep it cool enough so that it wouldn't run through to the other side. If it got thin and ran through, then that would leave a goopy mess on the ceiling where the patch was. It's not the cleanest patch in the world, but not my area of expertise. So anyway, there's the repair, I guess you could say, or the patch to hold it together from the glue gun. And again, I tried to hold the glue gun away so the glue would cool enough on application that it wouldn't be so thin that it would run through the cracks. Okay, once you're done with the light hole patch in the ceiling panel, you'll get back up on the roof of the van and install the fan pretty much like Nick's 1 hour YouTube video. In my van, I ran the power cord for the fan down to my Goal Zero 3000X power station, which is my house battery. But your power will come from your interior source, whatever that might be. One thing I left off and didn't get a video of was the cutting of the fan bezel. So I left a link down in comments to a video that Matt of ABC did of cutting the bezel to fit the ceiling panel. And Matt's a excellent source of Ford accessories and videos. So anyway, just follow the link in the comments section, and you'll see how you can cut your bezel off to fit the ceiling panel. Now, my initial thought was I could just put a piece of wood underneath right here and pull this cowl down so it was, or pull the ceiling panel down so it would fit more flush here. But when you do that, then this whole back here drops too. So then you get a, up here you get more of a, it drops the same. So that wouldn't look good either. So, hey, you got a gap and it's gonna stay, and that's the end of the story. Okay, here's the finished product, and ceiling fan mounted in the most rearward position of a Ford Transit 148 long, but not extended. A couple of nice things here is if, as mentioned earlier, if you put a fan in this location here, you've got exactly 14 inches between the cross beams and the ceiling. Those are excellent supports for the front and rear of the fan. And then the DIY brackets, or framing brackets, provide support this direction. So we have good support in front and back, side to side of the fan. So anyway, you can see here where there's no headliner light here and no light here. Those were taken out. Fortunately, the bezel covered the hole for the light up here, and we had to add a patch here for the most rearward light. One upside of this modification is that when one person is sleeping back here and another person opens one of the doors, the lights don't shine in your eyes. So that's nice. We control the rearward lighting now with this light here I installed for this side, and this light I installed for this side. So anyway, here's the finished product. Okay, just like all YouTube videos, if you look down below and click the More button, you're going to see links to some other instructional videos and products I used in this video production. Of course, Christopher has a real good YouTube on how to get the passenger van headliner panels out. Nick has a whole hour on how to install the fan itself. So Matt at AVC has a good clip on how to cut that fan trim ring bezel. Just go to the 410 mark in the video. And then Hein at DIY has several videos, one to show how to put on the rooftop adapter, and another one to show how to install the interior framing supports. And then under that are a lot of links to the different products I used in the video. So anyway, I hope some of this has been helpful. Again, there's must be 50 plus videos on YouTube on how to install the fan into cargo vans. But this information here is all I could find so far on installing the Maxx Fans into passenger vans. So again, hope some of it's helpful, and we'll catch you all later.